Hi, this is Leanne at Complete Payroll. Welcome to Payroll Country. Today we're going to be taking a look at the onboarding platform in Advanced HR. Starting from our dashboard, we're going to click on the HR Admin button, and that will bring us to our onboarding menu. To use the onboarding platform, you don't necessarily have to use applicant tracking first. You can always start your onboarding and then do that as a manual process. For more information on this process, please see our video, Advanced HR, Adding a New Hire Manually, at CompletePayroll.com. To start our onboarding, we're going to begin by setting up custom questions by clicking on Question Bank. So here I'll see a list of my current active questions for my company. I can always add new questions by going to the green plus New button. There are several types of questions we can add for our custom question bank, and I can choose them by clicking on the type or status. You'll see we have 4 options: yes or no, free-form text, date, or multiple choice. I can deactivate my questions, and I can always reactivate them later on. The sequence designates the order in which the employees will see the questions. So if I want this one to be second, I'm just going to enter a 2 in this window. I can select if my question is required. So if I want employees to answer it, I'll make sure I click yes here. I've decided the question I want to add. I'll simply add a question title, and then I'll enter a question text. To add my answers, I'll simply click in an answer in the window, and then I can use the plus sign to add as many additional answers as I would like for this particular question. Once I'm satisfied with my question and answers, I will save my record by clicking the Save Changes button at the bottom. And now we can see our new question is in our question bank and ready to use. Now we're going to move on to our next item in the onboarding menu list by clicking HR Admin and then clicking Task List from our onboarding menu. I can create a new task by clicking the green button, or I can edit any existing tasks. So tasks are based on the position that you're hiring for. For example, I have CDL driver and RN in my current list. These employees may need to provide additional certifications, and therefore they're asked more unique questions than others in the onboarding process. So to create a new task, I'm clicking the green button. I'll begin by giving my task a title, and then I'll enter in a description. When that's complete, I'll move on to steps to select what I'd like to include in this onboarding task list. So for example, if I want to include a welcome note, I'll click yes. If I want to include direct deposits, yes. But maybe I don't want to include a W-4. I want them to fill that out at the office, so I'll select no. And the same thing with my I-9. I'll select yes for including a background check authorization. Now please keep in mind this does not provide the background check, it just merely gives authorization for the process. If I'd like to include a company document, I will go ahead and click yes here. Company documents may be something like my employee handbook. And so to add that document, I'd simply click on that drop down and select the file that I want to add to this onboarding task. If I'd like to include a custom question like the ones we built earlier, I'll simply click yes. And then down below there's a green link question button, and I will click that to add any of the questions that I would like to add to this onboarding task list. If I'd like to include any custom document uploads, I'll click yes here, and then I'll enter in a note over in the custom doc upload note area. For example, if I want my employees to include a voided check if they're going to be using direct deposit, then I'll enter a note here directing them to do so. Finally, I might want to include an end note and e-signature. The end note is just like the welcome note, only maybe you're going to thank them for their time in completing the onboarding process. And then you can include a disclaimer that you'll ask them to sign off on. Moving down is our link question function, and so I can select a question from the drop-down. I'll select lunch, the one that we recently set up, and then click link question in order to save. I can link multiple questions here in my task list, or if I'm satisfied with the ones I've chosen, I'm ready to move on. So here's where I'm going to enter in my welcome and end notes. You can customize these to the specific positions, or perhaps you have a standard company welcome or end note that you'd like to use. Once I'm satisfied with my onboarding task list, I'll click on Save Changes. And now my full-time hourly has been added to my grid. If I ever want to make changes to my task list, I simply click on that row on the grid and make the appropriate changes. Now that we've completed our onboarding task list, we're ready to move on to the next step in onboarding, which is Onboard Prep. Onboarding Prep will definitely change based on the modules that you're using in the system. So if you're using applicant tracking, half of this section is going to be completed by the applicant ahead of time. However, it's not necessary to use that, and you can complete all of this information manually. I'll begin by selecting the position that I am hiring for, and then next I will select the task list that I would like them to use. I can then select a hire date, verify my employee ID, and then click Let's Begin Onboarding. This will take me to the employee profile where I can begin adding the employee details. Here our required fields are marked with a red asterisk, and then we will start by entering first name, last name, and an email, which is very important because that's going to be our username. Next is compensation, and we'll go ahead and enter in the employee's pay rate. Frequency is going to default to your company's primary frequency, but if you need a different one for this employee, you can go ahead and make a selection from the drop-down. If our employee is going to work standard hours, we can go ahead and enter that here in this field. And we also have a benefits section where we can enter in the date in which they're eligible for benefits. Next, we're going to select the state for the employee's taxation, and the states that are set up for your company will show up in the drop-down list. In the employment section, we're going to enter in the details appropriate for this employee. So maybe we want to include the FLSA classification, their department, perhaps a category for EEO, and then we have 3 levels of supervisor that we can enter here. If your company has a hierarchy and you want to enter their primary supervisor, and then you've got selections for a second and third if needed. Next, we're going to add their username, and we can do so by clicking on the Quick Add User button. It will pop up a window that will be pre-populated with most of their information, and then we'll just go ahead and we can assign a role, and then if we have their time clock username, we could enter that. If not, we can just click Add User. The user-defined fields are for you to customize as you see fit. An example may be that you want to enter in your employee badge number under memo number 1. If this employee is going to be using the time clock, you can make the selections for the settings here, or if you would like, you can make those selections in Swipe Clock if you're going to be using TimeWorks Plus. If we're satisfied with our entries, we'll click on Submit Onboarding Request, which will trigger an email to the employee inviting them to complete their personal information. Now that I've completed my onboarding prep, I'm taken to the onboarding dashboard. Here I can reference the status of where my employees are in the onboarding process. We can see that 2 of our employees are in the prepped stage, meaning that we have finished our prep and we have sent them an email. And then we can see that our 3rd employee here has started the onboarding process. And if I'd like to see where they are in detail, I'll click on the employees row in the grid to open up their onboarding detail. So here we'll see the information that we either added manually or that came over from the applicant tracking if you're using that software. Scrolling down, we'll see some of the onboarding prep info such as compensation or payroll, taxes, employment, and then we'll see the onboarding welcome note that we programmed earlier in the onboarding task list. This is where the employee is going to pick up and fill out their own personal information, beginning with emergency contact, and they'll answer the custom questions that had been added to their onboard task list. If they've been asked to add direct deposits, they'll do so here. They can add up to 3. They'll sign off agreeing that the direct deposits will come out of payroll. They can enter W-4 information, and when they complete the form with their digital signature, a PDF will create that you can access later on. Next is I-9. The employee will complete their portion and e-sign, which will then go to a task list for you to complete the second half of the I-9 and generating a PDF if so desired. Next is the background check authorization. Again, this does not trigger a background check. It just is their signed authorization for you to complete the check through a third party. Here, any company documents that were asked the employee to review will be available, and if required, they can enter in their signature. In the custom document upload area, this will be any documents that we've asked the employee to upload, like a voided check for direct deposit. And then next is our onboarding certification or EndNote. Here we have a thank you note, and if you wanted to enter a disclaimer here to have the employee read and sign, perhaps accepting their at-will status, you could do that here as well. So next, under user, the username that we previously added will appear here. And then finally, any time clock settings that we want to complete, we can enter here under integration. Returning to the onboarding dashboard, we can see the status of each onboarding employee. Once an employee completes their part, they receive a message of success with copies of all documents generated during the process. Back on our onboarding dashboard, their status changes to requires approval, with additional buttons now available to either reset their status to a previous stage or approve and create their employee payroll record, which will then change their status on the dashboard to approved and complete their onboarding process. For more information on onboarding in Advanced HR, please see your user guides, talk to your customer service rep, or go to our website, completepayroll.com, where you'll find a video library featuring more Advanced HR videos. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day.